Captain Shiralis stood on the bridge of her battleship, looking into the void of space, her sleek Varkoth form flowing with grace in every step, turn, or even breath. With the clean, elegant uniform of the Galactic Union, all around her were crew members hard at work on the pristine flagship of her sector. Turning her head slightly was all she needed to see the different stations and could read their displays. Sensors reporting no unusual traffic in the sector. Ship systems nominal. Security on high alert, what? She turned to look back and then remembered the shuttle that docked using an unusual code, one that she had given to a particular person. And she sighed. The door to the bridge slid open. The normally silent panels seemed to give off a sense of being slammed open, even though physical interaction with them wouldn't change their speed. The next sound was a heavy boot almost slamming through the metal floor, followed by a loud metal clang of another step from a metal prosthetic, a robotic industrial arm repurposed as a leg. Then came the smell of smoke, something that would have usually caused alarm, but because she knew who was on her bridge, still looking out into the vastness of space as if it would transport her anywhere but here, a gravelly voice spoke, "Captain on the bridge. There is only one captain of this ship, and she is standing in front of you. Also, I'm glad I skipped my last meal, or else I'm sure it will make a return once I turn around." Shiralis turned to look at the human standing on her bridge. His form is larger than that of the average human. His clothes looked like they hadn't been washed in days and were made over 100 years ago, having been passed down from someone of a slimmer build. A large industrial robotic arm repurposed as a leg seemed to look better than a real prosthetic leg would on his form. His large, unkempt beard was barely a distraction from his face, where one eye was missing, and skin had grown over where it once was with a scar that hadn't been treated by a doctor with a medical degree, and almost hidden from view by the pillar of smoke from a very much against regulations cigar in the corner of his mouth. "Welcome aboard, Pirate Emperor Sam. You got fat." Sam let out a low chuckle as he moved up next to Shiralis and pulled her into a big hug, lifting her off her feet for a moment before setting her back down. "Please don't use that name. I never wanted to be in charge of a budding empire. But here I am." He took a drag from his cigar before letting it out, and Shiralis stood in place as a show of strength, even though her lungs were burning from waiting for enough of the smoke to dissipate that it wouldn't make her cough. "So this is the place you wanted to meet." Shiralis was about to speak when she noticed the nervous looks from her crew and decided secrecy was more of a hindrance than help at this point. "Yes, thank you for agreeing to help us with this mission. As you know, the Galactic Union is at war with the Rhodoc Confederacy." The name got a visible scowl from the human, who wasn't mad at anyone in the room, but still put several crew members close to needing a change of uniform. As such, one of their generals has made a habit of withholding reinforcements from a front only to jump 2 sectors away to reappear. Nodding to the statement, Sam interjected, "From my understanding, they were heading away from this sector with that tactic." Shiralis gave him a look of annoyance as if she hadn't finished her statement, then continued her statement. "Yes, that is their typical strategy, but I believe they are going to make a drastic change in their plan. The Union is already preparing for what they normally do, and they intend to beat the Rhodocs to that area with a large force." She then held up a finger to stop Sam from speaking. However, the Rhodocs have been moving a much larger amount of FTL fuel than they normally do for this type of maneuver, and this sector, this location, is the most likely point they will jump into Union space. Lowering the finger to allow Sam to speak. Taking another drag of his cigar, Sam held it out and tapped it, dropping the ashes onto the pristine floor before returning it to his mouth. A cleaner bot slowly moved to the spot to clean the ashes, as it had been working so hard that the battery was about to die. Shiralis never saw a bot that had more of a look of thank God on its non-existent face, as it did when another bot showed up to take its place before turning her attention back to Sam as he spoke. "So you called in your favor to have us help. You because your precious Union thought you were not right, and that your only hope is the same pirate that you've been hunting for the past 20 years. Just a quick reminder before we get started, only 4% of my viewers have subscribed to the channel so far. If you enjoy the content, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button and support the channel. Thank you so much. Now continue amazing story." Getting a nod and a look that said precisely, only for another hearty chuckle to leave Sam as he put an arm around Shiralis and turned to look at her crew. "You lot are a lucky lot. Your captain here is probably the only Union officer I would listen to and would be glad to offer my aid. After all, you did save my life. The crew gave some low whispers as Shiralis sighed. "You did that on purpose." As Sam gave a toothy grin, the flat teeth showing with sharp canines poking out was perfect for a human. The look of a predatory species hidden as a non-predatory one. Guilty. And the Varkuth turned. "I'm sure you all would like to hear this story." Sam motioned with his arms for them to gather, and a few started to move until Shiralis shot them a look, causing them to return to their stations. Taking a deep breath, Shiralis started before Sam could set the mood. With a calm, soft look, she said, "It was when I was a junior officer. I was aboard the GU frigate Dartham when a Rhodoc destroyer came out of FTL and opened fire. It didn't take long for things to become dire, and I volunteered with 7 others to board a crash fighter and sabotage the enemy ship so the Dartham could escape. I assumed it would be a one-way mission." That is when Sam joined in. And it would have been if it wasn't for a handsome young human. His arms went wide as if he was some grand hero. "I was aboard that same destroyer as a prisoner. My ship had been captured, and my crew and I had been interrogated for a month. They killed every member of my crew in front of me, as if that would make me give up my home station. I had been biding my time and preparing to escape when the sounds of battle told me that all my plans would be for nothing." Shiralis rolled her eyes as, while he wasn't exactly lying, his storytelling embellishments were quite cheesy to someone who was there. Captain Shiralis continued, "We had broken into the Rhodoc armory. It was a lucky place to hit, as it meant. Their response time would be greatly reduced. We sabotaged what we could and split into 2 teams. The one I was with happened to come across the brig next." She looked at Sam from the corner of her eye, and she could see Sam waiting for the handoff. She sighed and let him join in. Sam raised his arms. "There I was in my cell, and I could hear the sound of hope. Union blaster fire, but there was more Roddy. Getting cut off by a couch from Shiralis. Rhodoc blaster fire. It was her ship after all, and he would have to follow her protocol for language. Rhodoc." Sam paused to get a nod of approval from Shiralis. "Blaster fire. Drowning out the Union blaster fire. Eventually, I saw your captain and another Union officer. You might have heard of him." Pausing for dramatic effect, a young officer who would come to be known as Admiral Sardine. Sam froze as he just realized he used the nickname he and his crew used. Admiral Sardavan. Deciding to stop and let the clearly angry Shiralis restore some order. "We had been caught off guard by the security team and lost 2 of our unit. Admiral Sardavan." Turning to look at Sam as she put extra emphasis on the Admiral's name, as if it would keep Sam from using his nickname for the Admiral again. "And I were eventually pinned down next to a cell containing a loud and obnoxious human who kept trying to get our attention." Leaving out how he had actually managed to get their attention, Sam smiled, and the look he got said to tread carefully. "So, I reached out and tapped Shiralis on the, shoulder and unfairly got a blaster pointed at my face. Even though several members of the crew were enthralled by his telling of the story, it was quite clear the pointing of the blaster wasn't unfair. And I told her I have an escape plan already set up to get me to my ship in the hangar. If you let me out, I can help you get to it, and we can escape this space bomb." Getting a few looks of confusion, Shiralis nodded. Apparently, Sam had gotten access to the ship's computer several times and learned of a fatal flaw in the ship's design. If specific pipes were physically disabled, the ship's sensors wouldn't register it, and an excess amount of fuel would be sent to the reactors regardless of the power status of the ship. This meant that if you disable the cutoff for those pipes and cause a power outage to the whole ship, a reactor restart would be triggered, and one could destroy the ship. Sam nods and lets out a huff. Naturally, Shiralis wanted to do that, and not escape to ensure that it would blow up with us in the process. Needless to say, the other team got to the ship's fire control station and disabled it, allowing the Dartham to escape, making the ensured destruction of the destroyer unnecessary. He stood up and posed to emphasize the danger of their situation. Deciding to move things along, Shiralis stepped in front of Sam. "So our mission changed from one of destroy to one of escape. We sent a secure message to the other team to meet us in the hangar, and we opened Sam's cell and told him that he better not try anything. It would be something I would regret instantly." Sam raised a finger. "But not for long, as once freed. I told them we needed to go where the rats wouldn't be able to track us, and that I had a plan to help. I unleashed the first part of my plan," spreading his arms wide as if making a grand decision, "opening all the cells." Shiralis sighed, as it was the second thing that made her regret opening Sam's cell. And after a little explanation of the concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend to the recently liberated new allies and some electrical diplomacy from a Union stun baton, we were on our way. Taking a moment to pose in a stern, controlled manner that was quite the opposite of the showmanship of the human, Shiralis continued. The prisoners were in such a frenzy that they ran off to fight the Rodak without attempting to grab weapons, and Sam led us around, on a path he used when he was able to slip out of his cell. She looked around with an annoyed look many of the crew had seen when they were about to get chewed out across her face. We ran into another Rodak patrol, sooner than we would have hoped, and he ran to leave us there as a distraction, as the vent we were going to use was behind us. Sam laughed and put a hand on her shoulder. Oh, come on, you still think that? I thought that with all the chaos going on, there wouldn't be any patrols between the hangar and us, and the other prisoners would take care of them. Besides, I did fight that patrol that was coming up behind us and made them dive for cover before they could get in a good defensive position. As your captain and the future admiral found me fighting off that other patrol, I told them about the vent in the ceiling, which was big enough for us to get through. The admiral went first to make sure it was safe, followed by Shiralis. Eventually, I was able to get in. Turning to look at Shiralis as if he had been hurt by what was done to him, without the assistance others had. Before turning back to the crew, we crawled to the hangar, unsure of if we would make it in time, and things were looking grim. Sam looked back at Shiralis and smiled before getting a smack. What was that for? Shiralis pointed a finger. You know exactly what that is for. Sam nodded and shrugged as he quite enjoyed the view he had that day after having been locked up for so long. The closest to another female was a bowguarding, a species that was technically both and neither at the same time. Eventually, Shiralis continued, we got to the hangar and we thought it would be easy as there were no alarms and everyone was walking around until the other unit came in, or more precisely, or what was left of them. I only saw one, Lieutenant Markovi, one of the few humans serving in the Union military, and what I saw made me realize why the Rodak glassed Earth soon after contact with humans was made. His injuries were severe, and yet he was still fighting. Half of the injuries I saw on him would have been fatal for other species. Sam took his hat off as a sign of respect. Sam spoke softly in a soft manner that was quite the opposite of how he looked. I wanted to save the lad, but the hangar was too large, and well, Sam laughs. He figured if he couldn't use the ships, no one should, and blew one up, starting a chain reaction. Luckily, my ship wasn't caught in the destruction, before motioning to his face and leg. But I was, getting a look of amazement from the crew as this was quite an epic tale for them. They knew the captain had gotten her first promotion and Union honor from a suicide mission, but not much was known about it from the reports. You weren't the only one caught in the explosions. Sardavan had a piece of metal lodged in his abdomen. I was ordered to take Sam aboard his ship, and Sardavan covered our escape. He was ready to make his last stand to ensure we made it out of there. Turning to look Sam over, if you were as big as you are now, we never would have made it. Causing Sam to laugh, put an arm around Shiralis, and pull her close once more. Don't be that way. We're all friends here. So we got aboard the ship, and I jumped the pilot's chair and started her up. He looked around. Humans tend to refer to our ships as females as they are quite beautiful and can be temperamental. Getting a few laughs from a joke and a glare from the captain that he didn't need to see to know she had. Your captain saw all the ship systems come online and thought I was going to blast my way out of the hangar and leave Sardavan behind. Sam caught himself this time, nodding to his statement, and glad that he didn't use the insult. Shirley smiled a little as even her calm and stern exterior was starting to melt as she got into the story during its climax. That was when he stood up, pushed me into the chair, and told me what to press to get the ship out of the hangar. He grabbed an old human weapon known as a rifle, hopped to the ramp of the ship, and started shooting. Sam nodded and smiled and pointed to himself in an I did that fashion. I might have been and still am a pirate, but I'm also a man of honor, and I couldn't live with myself if I left someone who was willing to put their life on the line for me to die in my place. Once the future admiral was on board, we closed up the ship, and that was when bringing his hand up to his face to give a chief's kiss, beautiful plan went into motion. Shiralis took a deep breath, as this part would be hard to admit. His program went into action. The hangar doors opened without the shielding in place. A hand raised up, and she put her own up to stop it. Markovi was laying dead under a Rodok fighter with 3 dead Rodoks around him, and 2 more. Pausing as remembering what she saw was still hard, shooting him several times to make sure he was dead. When I saw those 2 fly out into space, I felt no greater pleasure. We took off, and Sam came back to take control of the ship once more. Sam gave Shirali's shoulder a light squeeze for comfort, as he knew Markov was a good friend of the captain. So while Shiralis strapped Sardovan into a seat, I made evasive maneuvers that caused us to turn around and face the very ship we were trying to escape from, which had just gotten their main weapons back online and was charging to blast us out of space. And he looked over his audience with a smile. But that was their mistake, for the reactors of those guns had their fuel shut-off valves locked in the open position. He put his arms out in an oops pose. If they were to charge the main batteries to maximum power and the system shut off before giving the command to stop charging, well, it was the most beautiful explosion I had seen. Putting his bald hands out before opening them to mimic the explosion, Shiralis nodded. Though things weren't as simple as that. The Rodoks were making a push into Union space, so there were still several warships in the area. We were in a... Turning, she saw Sam look like he was getting ready for her to insult him again. Fast but underpowered ship for combat, causing the pirate to smile. And Sardovan was bleeding out and had several organs destroyed. Even though Sam had pulled him aboard, I did not think he was going to live. So after taking care of my wounds, pulling, he lifted his prosthetic leg up. This off the fabrication bench and uploaded prosthetic leg software. I took Sardovan to the medbay. He protested and said it was too late for him and that he was just glad to have gotten Shirilis off safely. I said sod off and might have violated every medical code in the book. Giving a soft chuckle as he stepped back so Shirilis could continue, Shirilis took a deep breath to avoid shivering. She recalled the medical horror show, which was human. Surgery. Some of the organs damaged helped remove toxins from the blood as well as some major arteries. Sam hooked Admiral Sardovan up to a machine to remove toxins from the blood in a manner that was more like connecting him to the ship than a medical procedure. Having to take a moment to realize she was getting caught up in the storytelling and had forgotten to look at the stations around her as the crew did as well. It looked as if several FTL signals had appeared very far out from where they were, but there were no ships on sensors and she couldn't see anything out of the viewports. Sam continued while Shiralis was distracted. So, with the future Admiral taken care of, I tried making things as comfortable as possible for the 3 of us while we floated around. We talked about ethics, politics, and, more importantly, why we are more similar than different. It also shaped me into the man I am today. I might be a pirate, but I try to be civilized about it. I make sure that those who don't fight or have been defeated are not killed. I don't steal the last of what a crew needs to get home and survive, and I don't raid space stations or colonies. Shirilis turned to Sam with a worried look, who smiled back and nodded before motioning for her to continue talking. We eventually did get rescued, but it was by another pirate ship. The captain of that ship wanted to have me and Sardovan executed, but Sam had given us his word that we wouldn't be. Needless to say, thanks to Sam, we are here, and that pirate, captain, is not. He took over the other captain's ship with a similar speech that he had given to the prisoners. Regarding honoring one's word, the Union might be hostile to pirates, but we are helping humanity rebuild. We have been giving humans resources to restore their home world so they no longer need to turn to piracy, even if Sam's group is making a new life for humanity in our sector. Sam smiles as suddenly 30 Rodok ships appeared, putting an end to their story. And to Sam's annoyance, cutting him off from the good stuff that Shirilis probably didn't want to have told to her crew. The crew scrambled 2 Rodok battleships, 4 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 6 frigates, and 10 corvettes. Another crew member cried out, "Captain, I'm getting a transmission from the lead battleship. Putting on screen now." A smug-looking rodent-like creature stood on screen, its twisted teeth in an even more twisted smile. "Hello, Captain." A weaselly voice came on over the speaker. "I'm going to offer you a chance to surrender as I feel quite generous." Only to pause when he noticed the human standing with the captain. "Is that the pirate scum, Sam? I must say, this day just keeps getting better." Giving a snorted laugh. "Hand him over, and I will happily let you leave." And just as he was about to speak again, Sam interrupted him, in a mocking tone similar to the Rodok's own. "On second thought, I shall just destroy your ship and everyone on it. This proves how much of an inferior rat-faced sludge licker I really am." Sam turned to Shiralis, who was starting to look shocked when Sam winked and pointed to the screen she had seen earlier. Shiralis smiled and shook her head. I think you got it wrong. He looks more like bung liquor than sludge liquor. The Rodok's face started to twist in anger. How dare you speak to me that way? I was going to be generous and let you die quickly. But now I will disable your ship and take you prisoner so you can die a slow and painful death. You will beg me for... Sam raised an arm and pointed 2 fingers at the image with his thumb up before twitching his wrist back. A red light shot out from his ship towards the Rodok fleet. What was that? A space flare? Do you expect me to get scared of a space flare? Giving another snort laugh, which was joined by the laughs of his crew, Shiralis heard one of her own over the laughing Rodoks. Captain, 20 power signatures just came online. Wait, no, 4? 7. Captain? And the face of the Rodoks showed they had also just detected the same thing. Suddenly, hundreds of new stars appeared in the sky. Only they weren't stars. They were lights aboard 200 pirate vessels, all painted as black as the void of space, with the lights being the only way to know where they were, probably. So they wouldn't fly into one another in the impending battle. Shortly after, even more lights appeared like comets flying towards the Rodok's ships. The moving lights turned out to be missiles launched by the pirate ships in a spread that would make it impossible to evade them all. Before the first volley made impact, a second was already launched, and then a third. Sam turned, putting his arm around Shiralis as the panicked screams of the Rodoks could be heard in the background, shouting for evasive maneuvers and a few more insults, as that was going to be the only thing the captain of the Rodok ship could hit Shiralis and Sam with. Sam stopped as he paused to turn back. By the way, Karvathic. The name filled with vile hatred. The Rodok's face lost all color. I never said my name. Sam laughed. Every human knows the name and face of the one who ordered Earth to be glassed. I'm just glad it is my fleet that is going to kill your ass. Before turning to walk off the bridge with Captain Shiralis. I have a bottle of whiskey from 2053 that I've been saving for an occasion like this. Care to join me? Shiralis was about to turn and look back to her crew, only to hear the signal from Karvathic getting cut off in an explosion, a bridge crew member reporting the destruction of several Rodok ships, and pirate missiles self-destructing, before coming near the Union ships. She looked at Sam and smiled, knowing she wasn't going to be able to say no to this, and part of her didn't want to. I would love to. Enjoy another amazing story. Princess Rolia fell into a seated position on the floor as her steward was positioned next to her. The other soldiers who were captured from the team she had been leading were behind. I demand to speak to your leader, growled the Karvrithok. Princess as the humans walked about, almost gloating at their catch. You'll get your chance. I gotta make some calls first, came a voice from behind view. The older Karvrithok next to her fake cleared his throat to get the princess' attention. You know, princess, now that we are captured. To which Rolea interjected, I wouldn't have been if you had done your duty. Making the older Karvrithok pause in annoyance. There were too many between me and you for me to have carried out that duty. I have to now follow the rules for that. The princess froze for a moment. You can't be serious, Sarvik. Sarvik nods without looking at the princess, instead looking for the man he saw fighting with her. Our culture is built upon tradition, even ones you might not wish to be a part of. You were beaten in single combat by a male. The princess interjects, Not true. 2 of our soldiers were fighting with me. To which Sarvik nods, which makes it an even more impressive feat. He gets a growl of annoyance in return. A human woman walked over, hearing them talk. What is going on over here? Sitting, down on a crate in front of the prisoners. Sarvik looked at the human. Maybe you can help. Who was the one by himself during the fight? Sitting up, the human smiled. That would be our fearless leader. Didn't want anyone to risk their life as our formation required 4 in front of you. Rolea sneered. You mean your trap? The human gasped at the accusation, placing a hand on her chest in mock surprise. Just because your senses were not keen enough to notice us, doesn't mean it was a trap. We even called out for you to surrender as you're surrounded. And you chose to fight. Getting a nod of agreement from the steward, who got an elbow, for agreeing with the human, causing a grunt of pain. That spot is a little tender from the fight, which got another one from the princess. That is for your failure in duty. The human woman pointed a finger at the pair as if they were children. Don't make me separate you two. So, you were speaking earlier. And Sarvik nods. Does your leader come from a noble bloodline? Which made the human smirk. He would say he does. Before taking a moment to pose and take a mock tone of the ragtag group's leader, my grandfather would tell me stories of how we were descendants of Spartan kings of over 4,000 years, getting a laugh from the woman and a nod from Sarvik. Is there any possibility that is true? And the human shrug. Could be. It was a long time ago, and I remember hearing something about how everyone is related to royalty in some way or another because of mixing. Rolaya smiles. See, his bloodline is too diluted. Also, I never heard of the Spartans, so how much of a warrior family could they be? Getting another laugh from the woman. They weren't a family. They were an entire culture who just became part of a country known as Greece. They never died out or went extinct. They just started calling themselves Greeks instead of Spartans. Looking back and forth between the two, Sarah started to smile more as she realized what the conversation had been about. Sarvik nodded in understanding. I see. What were the beliefs of these Spartans? Causing the human to think for a while. Well, I remember hearing the only way to get your name on a grave is for men to have died in combat or women to have died during childbirth. Both were seen as a way of supporting Sparta. They were fierce warriors. Often, just a single word could keep an army out of the country. Oh, and marriage was some kind of ritualistic combat, I think. By this time, Nick walked over. What is all this commotion? He looked around at a giggling Sarah, a stoic-looking male Karvrithak, and what he could only assume to be a blushing female Karvrithak. Sarah looked up. Oh, just talking about Spartan marriage fighting. To which Nick sighed. It wasn't combat. Spartan men would meet up with the women they found attractive during the night and take them back to their barracks or someplace else. Sarvik tilted his head some. Do you believe Rolaya to be attractive? Getting a wide-eyed look from the princess. Sarvik, you stop this right now. The human male looked confused and looked over. To be honest, I never really thought of a Karvrithak as beautiful or not, but, I mean, if we weren't at war, maybe, kinda. Sarvik nodded once more. Then it is settled. The combat took place at night, and it seems all the conditions for both cultures are met, or at least enough to be considered valid under the mixed cultures doctrine. Nick looked even more confused as he looked at the male Karvrithak, then the female who looked ready to die from embarrassment, and his second-in-command Sarah, who looked ready to burst from laughter, and when he remembered what they were talking about, marriage, got his own look of shock and horror. No. Sarvik nods. You are to be paired with Princess Rolaya, which was what Sarah needed to hear to burst out laughing finally and almost fell off the crate. The whole thing caused everyone to look over, prisoner and non alike. Rolaya, we are in agreement there, human. There is no way this is going to happen. Sarvik took a deep breath. I'm afraid, as steward of the royal family, it is my duty to inform your father. Nick shook his head. No, there is no way I can marry a furball. Sarah, for her part, finally fell to the floor before managing to get something out that wasn't laughter. Bum, 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 bum. To the tune of Here Comes the Bride getting a kick from Nick, which only returned her to her crazed laughing state, which by now more people started figuring out what was going on, and some more laughter started, only one from the Karvrithak. Rolaya turned to look at which one of her soldiers was laughing. Whoever is laughing is going to have their tongue cut out. Before turning to Nick, if we kill Sarvik, no one will tell. To which Sarah's hand shot up, I will. And Sarvik nods. We have a second in agreement from the groom's side. We just have to contact your father. He will agree to the ceasefire the humans have been asking for. Nick looks down. We would have to kill more than Sarvak. When a cough from behind caught his attention, causing Nick to look back. Command finally answered. Nick took a deep breath and pointed a finger at the Karvrithaks. No speaking, and then pointed at Sarah. Pull it together. As the now out-of-breath woman took deep breaths to get it back. Okay, I'm done now. Nick walked over and answered the line, talking about the success at capturing the high-value target in their area, and how it was the princess. After a few minutes of talking, Nick returned with a different look on his face, and Sarah wiped her eyes having cried from laughing so hard. Oh, I don't think I can survive another laughing fit like that. It was too funny. Nick took a deep breath, causing Sarah to look up in amused horror as Nick spoke. Command told me to contact the Karvrithax and use any means necessary to get them to agree to the ceasefire. And Sarah smirked while holding in her laughter, and got slapped upside the head for it. She screamed in pain. What was that for? And Nick smiled. You said if you started laughing, you were going to die. I just saved your life. Taking a deep breath, Sarah nods. I guess. But you could have held back. Relia's embarrassment died down enough that she started to glare at Nick. If you think for a second, I will marry you. I would rather die. Nick held a finger up and bopped Relia on the nose to silence her. Not getting married. Turned to Sarvik. Going to get Tony to agree to a ceasefire anyway. And then turned to Sarah. Someone is getting a demotion. To which she replied, worth it. Nick sighed and walked away to a secluded area he and Sarah would talk, and Sarah started to follow. Though I'm in agreement with killing the princess, it will be a nice revenge for everything the furballs have done to us since the war started. A hand going to her sidearm, Nick turned to her. Put it away. I don't like the idea either. It could at least be enough of a distraction to get the upper hand, or get some end to this war. Sarah looked at him seriously for the first time since starting the conversation with the aliens. Nick nods. You have a weird way of grieving, you know that. Your humor was bad before, but this is twisted. No, we are not going to plan a wedding. We'll use it as a cover to regroup and... Sarah groaned out of frustration. Why are we even listening to the human collation? They abandoned us, and then when our resistance group got good enough, they contacted us and started demanding we follow their orders. Nick nods. Yeah, not like they started giving us intel, equipment, trained soldiers, causing Sarah to stop him. Okay, you made your point. Still, marriage? Nick shrugs at that. When we started fighting, I thought about how men used to throw themselves on grenades to save others. I've always been ready to do that. I guess to save lives, I'll have to take an arrow to the knee. Before starting to walk back in, a smile returned to Sarah's face. Without turning, Nick simply said, Knew that would get that cursed. Smile back. The two Karvrithax had been arguing again, with the princess drowning out the steward whenever he tried to give the transmission frequency to contact the king. Nick picked up a clean-ish rag and shoved it into the princess's mouth. All right, fine, I accept. Getting a muffled scream of anger from the princess, followed by what was surely an obscenity-filled tongue-lashing, defeated by a rag. Sarvik looked at Nick, angry for the first time. We might be your prisoners, but that is no way to treat the princess or your future wife. Nick nods some. Would you like me to remove it and risk going deaf in that ear? Pointing to the one that was on the side of the princess. A momentary glance from Sarvik at the princess, who was still trying to yell between attempts to remove the rag stuck on her sharp teeth, got up for now. The signal frequency is 195.255.2234.4.22. Also, I would refrain from using your human slur for our leader. He doesn't much like being compared to a human breakfast cereal mascot. Nick nods, then helps Sarvik to his feet and turns to Sarah. I could use my second in command. Gets a sigh of annoyance as she rebuttons the strap holding her sidearm while standing. Okay. After approaching the comms, the operator puts in the frequency, and releasing Sarvik's hands, he types in a code as the image of the king of the Karvrithax comes on with a roar of a statement. How dare you lay a hand on my daughter? If she is not returned to me within 1 Earth hour, I will glass the planet as I would rather see her dead than at the mercy of you lowly. As Nick decided to throw him off his game, calm down, Dad, causing the king to stop. What did you call me, and why is Sarvik standing next to you? Sarvik coughed to grab the attention of the group and to make this more noble than commoner. It is with much honor and regret that I have to inform you that this human has successfully completed the rite of binding. This information caused the king's lower jaw to drop, and Sarah chimed in, Funny you mentioned hand earlier because he's taking your daughter's hand in marriage. The king looked outraged. You're going to cut her hand off for marriage? And Sarvik raised a hand. It is a figure of speech, your majesty. Humans call grabbing another's hand with your own taking. Often done before the rings are placed on the hand of the one being wed. Nick and Sarah both turn to look at Sarvik, who doesn't turn his head. A steward must be informed on all relevant information. Nick turns back to the king. As your future son-in-law, I ask that you have your forces stand down. Don't want to accidentally kill a relative of mine, do you? The king let out a low growl of annoyance as a spitting sound was heard behind the group. The princess finally worked the rag out of her mouth. I object to this wedding. Only getting a yell in response. I can't stop it. If Sarvik has said the terms have been met, I would have to break years of tradition and condemn our bloodline to death to break it. The two humans went wide-eyed as they didn't realize how seriously the Karvrithiks took their tradition. Turning his head, the king spoke solemnly. Tell our generals to stand down and to return fire if fired upon. The comms operator relayed the message to the human command, which quickly ordered a similar command. Turning back, the king looked, like he was about ready to reach through the screen and strangle him. Know this, human. If you have lied about your intent, I was originally planning on subjugating the humans, but I will exterminate your species if you are lying. And Nick swallowed hard at the sudden realization that his plan of using this as a cover for the human forces to regroup was a bigger gamble than he first thought. Sarah smirked and turned to look up at Nick. No pressure. Enjoy another amazing story. Forward. This is my log from when I was the first officer of the cargo ship Frakalat. I've decided not to remove or alter any of the entries and have made the appropriate apologies, so don't get too angry with me. My mind was on survival above. All else. First Officer's Log 6146-489.654. I'm surprised I'm able to make this recording, as the trap we found ourselves in was a good one. 4 pirate vessels pulled us out of FTL and got the jump on us. A couple of lucky shots took out the bow bridge of 2 of them early, and the rest took some time. Unfortunately, the captain fell out of his chair and is no longer with us. While we managed to destroy the pirate ships, our ship was nearly destroyed as well, and might soon be. Our engines are offline, maneuvering thrusters offline, FTL. Comms offline, and I was told so is the coffee maker, which is the real shame. Nervous chuckle. Hopefully, my next entry will contain some better news. First Officer's Log 6146.489.657. We have some good news. One of the pirate ships we destroyed turned out to be adrift alongside us, close enough that we could use our suits to get over there and salvage some parts. We also found 3 pirates who managed to get to a bunk and lock themselves in. They are trapped there and begging for help. I'm going to take a vote among the crew, as there are some who don't feel right leaving them there to die. One suggested we just force open the doors to speed things along. I like to think we are better than that, so we'll vote. First Officers. Log 6146.489.658. The vote wasn't as close as I thought it was going to be. We pressurized the area on the other side of the door with suits for them. 2 Darthvas and a Borkat. The Borkat might be a problem, as they are a brutish species, but this one seems to be more interested in survival than being the strongest, and the Darthvas might be cunning, but they know we are their best chance of survival. Won't try anything until we are close to being rescued. Surprisingly, our human came up with a brilliant idea. We have no way of telling ships that come into the area which way we went, so we are going to release some unshielded containers with enough radioactive material to last 20 years. I believe he called it breadcrumbs. I'm not sure how the crumbs of a food item are going to help us. First Officer's Log 6146.489.661. I'm glad we voted to help the pirate survivors. While not up to code, they had a fix that got our maneuvering and landing thrusters online, which is good because it appears our current trajectory is going to take us into the gravity well of a planet. The only good thing about that is the planet appears to have a breathable atmosphere. At least, that is what our scans and information the pirates have told us. We should have arrived at the port today. Hopefully, they'll send out a search patrol and find us before we even make the planet fall tomorrow. First Officers Log 6146.429.668. Finally got this thing working again. It seems that for every bad thing that happens, a good thing does as well, and so the other way around. We get ambushed and take 2 out quickly. Win the battle, lost to the captain. Got the thrusters working, unable to change course in time to avoid crashing. Everyone survives the crash. Our food preservation box breaks. We ate what we could before it spoiled and have enough emergency rations to last a week, but I'm afraid the carnivorous species are going to have to make a tough choice. And the herbivore species already know it, I feel. They are getting nervous, but it makes more sense to eat one of the carnivorous members first, as the plants are not deadly to the others. We might pick the human first, even though he is an omnivore. First Officer's Log 6146.489.671. I think the human knew what was being planned because he vanished into the forest 2 days ago and hasn't returned. Our scanners are picking up his vital signs, so we know he is still alive, but we can't locate him. I was almost going to talk the others into choosing someone else, as it was like the human was such a boost to morale. Talking about how this was just like back home during his scout days. I didn't even know he was in the military. Called himself an eagle rank. Humans are a primitive species, so it must be a tribal thing. The strange thing is, if he was planning on abandoning us, why didn't he take the water system he built? First Officer's Log 6146.489.672. I was wrong about Bill, the human. He returned with that cart he had half finished the day before he left, but this was finished, and he had a large creature from the planet on top of it. We aren't sure how he brought down the creature, or even loaded it onto the cart. We know humans come from a world with high gravity, but I think it wasn't that high. Even more confusing is that after we prepared the creature, it turned out to be a predatory species. That was when Bill informed us that while the local wildlife of his home planet does get the better of humans sometimes, but humans are the apex predators of their world. I thought it was a joke until I saw it with my own eyes. He got a lot more respect from me. None of us informed him what we had planned. First Officer's Log 6146.489.674. Bill continues to amaze us with his wilderness survival skills, as he calls them. Apparently, the scout role he was talking about wasn't military training, it was a youth group, and Eagle is the highest rank one can achieve in the organization. When things started, we were forced to take shelter in the ship's debris that had crashed, but with his guidance, we now have personal quarters for each of us, a dining hall, and water showers that he should have heated in a couple of days. The most surprising thing about all of this is how he hasn't used electricity in any of these constructions. Of course, we are using salvaged heating coils instead of the biofuel he planned to cook our food. First Officer's Log 6146.409.679. Never. Go hunting with a human. I thought I was going to die, not from the beast we were after. It would run away, and we figured that was it. But he followed the creature without using a scanner. We walked for 10 hours. Eventually, we told him to scout ahead and that we'd catch up. He came back the next day with the creature we were tracking, and we returned to camp. He said he was going to go for a hike to see what else he could find. I don't know how his legs are still working after all that. First Officer's Log 6146.489.682. Remember how I said I had more respect for the human? I take it back. I can't respect someone who is clearly insane upon further review. On his hike, he came across a young beast that was similar to the one he killed on his first hunt, but instead of killing the thing, he brought it back as a pet. Said the creatures. Mother had died at the bottom of a cliff, and it was alone. The strange thing is, I think the little beast bonded to the human, said it was okay to pet it, but I nearly lost a finger. He seems attached to the young beast, so I'll have to figure out a way to kill it without him realizing it was me. First Officer's Log 6146.489.686. That creature the human brought back has been terrorizing the crew. It stalks the others, and a few have had bite wounds. While the herbivore members are terrified of it, the others seems to be warming up, as the creature seems to enjoy when you slide your hand over its back and gently scratch behind the ears. It even started to walk up to people and gently tap its foreleg against them until they give it a pet or scratch behind the ear. A few times it has scared crew members by getting what the human called the zoomies. It is impressive to see how agile it is as it runs in between legs and furniture. Though it has knocked a few things over, it is hard to yell at the creature when it lowers its muzzle and looks up at you with those big, sad eyes. First Officer's Log 6146.489.688. Fang has grown on me, as Bill said it would. It's true. At first, I was ready to kill the little warg. I believe that is what we decided on based on the description given. She was very aggressive towards everyone at first, but after socializing with the others, she seemed to view them as part of her pack. She doesn't even stalk the herbivore crew members anymore, though she doesn't seem to get along with the Borkat still. She has also grown quite a lot in the past few days, which tracks with how much she eats. We had to go on extra hunting trips just to feed her. First Officer's Log 6146.89.690. I knew the pirates would be a problem, but I never thought the Darthvas would be the ones to be the loyal ones. It was rough at first, but the crew had started treating them like one of our own, which is why when the Borkat tried to smash my head in while I was asleep, it came as a surprise. Didn't even try to deny it. Said if we had just died like good weaklings, they would have been rich, and he wouldn't be stuck on this planet with us. He broke free and tried to dig his claws into my neck, but Fang was quicker and sunk her, teeth into his. I was planning on rewarding her with him as a meal, but was told it would be bad to let her think eating people she killed was okay. So we ended up tossing his body off a cliff. First Officer's Log 6146.489.694. Things have finally come to an end. We received a subspace transmission from a rescue ship that was heading to our location yesterday. It turns out the trail of radioactive containers helped lead them to us, and the Darthvas have been asking if I would speak on their behalf. I'm inclined, as I thought they would try to sabotage the radio equipment or kill us in our sleep after finding out. Bill is also nervous, but only because he doesn't want to give Fang up, who he has been riding on his hunts, as she is apparently as big as an Earth horse now. I did talk to him in private as I needed to come clean about what we talked about. When we first crashed and how, if he hadn't left to go hunting that first time, we probably would have eaten him. He took it surprisingly well, and I won't tell the authorities his right hook hurts. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.